Out of all the parts forming figures we've been getting in the War for Cybertron trilogy, none have grasped my attention as much as the Fossilizers of this year's Kingdom. This new batch of Bone Bros and their ability to separate into either new weapons for your other figures or become Lovecraftian monstrosities has captured my imagination to the point where I have multiples of both deluxes out now. And with today's subject, the same can be said for the group's sole non-parts forming mold released this year. After a bit of a break, welcome back to IdArmed Reviews. Today we'll be taking a look at the Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Core Class Dracodon. At the time of recording, Dracodon will release later in 2021 as a part of Kingdom's third wave of Core Class figures and as a straight repaint of this year's Vertebreak. As most of you probably know by now, Dracodon transforms into what the TF Wiki acknowledges as the fossil of a Dracorex, and right off the bat you can tell Dracodon is going for a whole different look when it comes to the colors, because unlike the rest of Kingdom's Fossilizers out at retail, Dracodon is entirely molded in this bright green plastic. If you ask me, this in concept shouldn't look as good as the simple bony colors of Paleotrex, Ractonite, Vertebreak, and Wingfinger, but considering I do enjoy a fair bit of out there fantasy from franchises like Masters of the Universe, I do thoroughly enjoy the Nickelodeon slime-esque shade of green Dracodon uses. And that's not to say Dracodon's looking all green, that's because both the crest of the skull and all of his toes are dripped out in a lush golden paint. This was something the stock photos hid very well, and it's a shame because they do help to break up all that green plastic. And back to the skull, unlike Vertebreak, the eye holes are much more prominent thanks to that black paint. And of course, that all is complemented by the wonderful sculpting throughout the bones. With differing textures, rubber parts, and small indents in several of the bones, Dracodon really feels like a well-kept fossil in a museum. He just happens to be one that was also hanging out at a nuclear plant just a few hours beforehand. And being a core class beast former just like Rat Trap, articulation on Dracodon isn't too shabby either. The neck moves up and down on a hinge while the mouth does the same. Although a bit mistransformy, the arms can be splayed outwards. The legs meanwhile have the works, with ball-jointed hips, hinged knees, and ball-jointed feet. And finally, the tail can swivel around. So overall, Dracodon's fossil mode is surprisingly full of personality for being a pile of bones, as the other Fossilizers have been. With plenty of sculpting and articulation, Dracodon can get into all sorts of fun situations. But let's get going and maximize Dracodon into robot mode. Keeping it brief, Dracodon, just like Rat Trap, has a super fun yet simple conversion to robot mode. I can't tell if this was intentional or not, but the way the fossil legs just become the robot legs, while the torso does a lot of folding in and out, feels like a model on the mainframe show. And the same goes for removing the tail as a simple weapon we'll see later. And when done, Dracodon is still a very green guy. In robot mode, Dracodon is similar to both many Beast Wars characters as well as the handful of Kingdom toys I've already reviewed previously, in that he carries over a lot of details from his alternate mode. As such, I want to point out the new stuff that appear after the transformation. Starting with Dracodon's head, which is identical to Vertebreak's, I love this sculpting that almost feels reminiscent of Megatron from The Last Knight, with the knight-like upper bits and the horns protruding from below. But also, the way his eyes look like a pair of glasses or goggles always amuses me, and a metallic green paint for the eyes as well as the gold paint surrounding it help to make it stand out more. The other prominent detail is the torso panel, which is also the only real technological element to the whole figure. Also decked out in some gold paint, Dracodon's chest continues Kingdom's trend of Maximals having the absolute smallest faction symbols tampoed onto them. And although I do like the look of the mold's chest from the front, moving it to the side end, yeesh, that is not very good looking. This weird brickishness and the abrupt end of any angles on the sides doesn't really jive with either the rest of the figure nor my personal tastes, and is easily the worst part of the figure in terms of looks. On a more positive note, all of the details carrying over from the fossil mode look great when translated into robot mode bits. My absolute favorites are the arms of the fossil becoming almost like winglets of sorts on Dracodon's back, as well as what is effectively the rib cage of the fossil mode becoming a nice short pair of arms. But my absolute favorite piece of the alt mode used here in the robot mode is the tail, which is with Vertebreak, this connects and becomes a melee weapon of sorts. While with Vertebreak I like to display her holding it as a sword or whip, here I prefer Dracodon holding it upside down like a super long dagger. Moving now to articulation, and just like Rat Trap from a while back, Dracodon features a lot compared to the Legends class figures from before Kingdom. The head is on a ball joint allowing for limited side-to-side motion, and when combined with a joint from Transformation, he can look all the way up. The ball jointed shoulders, elbows, and hips allow for unimpeded motion for each limb. And finally, carried straight from the fossil mode are the hinged knees and the ball jointed ankles. which altogether make for an excellent range of movement to get Dracodon out and about in various poses. Now for size, Dracodon is your typical Legends or core size of about 3.5 inches, so compared to Earthrise Optimus Prime, his repaint, Kingdom Vertebreak, Rat Trap, Paleotrex, and Arachnite, all from Kingdom, Dracodon fits in super well to your current generation's collection. So it's easy to admit that Dracodon is literal wave filler to account for no more beast formers being released in core class as unique molds. Yet there still is charm in his existence, considering everyone has to find Dracodon in a store since him and his wavemate Soundwave have no pre-orders as of the time of this recording. The weird colors make him feel like one of those random Fox Kids redecos from the tail end of the original Beast Wars line. And for me, and hopefully you all, I think just how unique Dracodon is makes you consider getting him along with that Soundwave I know all of you will inevitably get. And thanks for watching my review of Kingdom Dracodon, and boy I'm happy to be back. Hopefully with summer giving me some more free time, I can get back to posting more reviews and whatever else I feel like making to entertain you guys. So hopefully at a faster rate, strap in for next time when we take a big look at one of this year's hottest releases. And as usual, see you all next time, and take care.